Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and this is the Eve Universe Friday show. I don't have a logo down there. Rat. Oh, well, whatever. I'll fix it next time. But I am hanging out in front of the lovely Fleet Star this weekend. It is the end of the week, beginning of the weekend, and we are going to be talking about everything that's been going on and happening this weekend and how you can get involved. So let's just jump straight into things, shall we? I want to talk first about some of the world news that's been going on recently, wrapping up the world news that happened involving the mining events that happened a week ago, leading up into what might be happening with Federation Day in the next few weeks, this weekend, and also looking at the faction warfare updates. We've been doing, like I said, I've been doing a lot of faction warfare recently, and I want to talk to you a little bit about how that's been going and what's been going on with that. Also, Poshvin has been burning, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And we'll talk, of course, about what to do this weekend. So let's just go ahead and jump straight into it, shall we, with the world news. Boom. Let's make this a little bit bigger, guys. Let's make this bigger. Hold up. This can be bigger. All right. So this is the one from what? This is one from the beginning of the mining event. So like almost 2 weeks ago now. In fact, yeah, the 27th. So new Stargate construction underway as EOM mopping up continues. So just to remind you, the last thing that happened prior to this is the Equilibrium of Mankind's betrayal, or rather revealing that the Equilibrium of Mankind has infiltrated all these mercenary organizations, and that, of course, Alar Chakade is, in fact, been a loyal member of EOM. It was EOM all along, right? That was the last basic lore beat before this. And so, new Stargate construction underway as EOM mopping up continues. The Scope Galactic Hour with Rhett Gloriax brings your roundup of the latest news from around the cluster as the Concord powers begin new Stargate construction projects, while mopping up the Equilibrium of Mankind terrorist cults continue in the core empires. Nice little picture of the Stargate construction site in Egglehorn system in Solitude. New Stargates under construction following the treaty signed by Concord empires in Uli. Uli Genesis. New Stargate construction efforts are underway in locations across New Eden following this. Hold on one second. I want to make sure that I can see that. Logo's on the shirt. Good point. But the Eve Universe logo isn't. New Stargate construction efforts are underway in locations across New Eden following the signing of new treaty between Concord powers providing the funding, navigation rights, and trade agreements relevant to new links. Negotiations between the four core empires in Concord are understood to have been carried out in some secrecy under the last few months, owing to the political situation, several of the empires being fraught, as one source close to the process puts it. The Glente Federation was the only empire to have openly signaled its intent to build a new Stargate as direct connections between Solitude region and the main contiguous territory of the Federation. As a long-standing campaign promise of President Celis Agard, the Federation has been clear that it would proceed with what amounts to an internal territorial link and observe the provisions of the Uli Accords and the Convention in doing so. Its planned link will establish paired Stargates in Kenrick, Placid, and Egglehorn Solitude. From the Federation's point of view, this effect of such a gate connection will be to bypass the Nullsec and Taki Syndicate and offer an alternative to the lengthy route via Genesis and Iridia. The other core empires have been known to have at least been exploring various mooted Stargate projects, with the most anticipated being the restoration of direct civilian Stargate link between the Amar Empire and the Kadari State. With the loss of the Amar system to Niarja to the Triglavian Collective, the previous link has been severed, and the new program of surveying for valuable new links have evidently been carried out by both empires and state. Both empire and state. It is reported that the previously viable connections from the Kaldari state to the Amar Empire has become, quote, dangerously unstable, end quote. Apparently, an effect of the large number of systems in Kaldari territory affected by the Triglavian stellar manipulation. A link between Haikayota in the Forge and Abyssus in Genesis has been established as a best candidate, and work is now underway in both systems. As well as strongly Backing politically, and in some measure financially, assisting the Caldari State Stargate project, the Amar Empire has chosen to expand its operations at its periphery with the construction program that will connect Samanir Tashmerkon with F7 Tech ICZ in Stain. Personally ordered by Empress Katniss I, the connection will open up the way from the territories of House Tashmerkon to yet more outer regions. Observers of imperial court politics has noted that Empress Katniss has positioned the royal heirs of her birth at the leading edge of the future Amar expansion through its control of rights over the Providence region and the new Stargate project to the Stain region. Samanir system itself holds particular significance for the Tashmerkon family, as it was the site of the ruined Traumark installation that served as a guardian fortress in the edges of their territory before it was destroyed by Santis Nation. The Mimitar Stargate project has perhaps the greatest surprise to observers of interstellar relations, with the construction of the Stargate from Urgerus in Metropolis to Pakshi in Genesis, set to establish a direct route from the Mimitar Republic to the Concord-administered Sanctum constellation. While memories of the Elder Fleet assault on the Concord headquarters in YC-110 are still strong for many, the last decade of Mimitar diplomacy has largely been supportive of Concord. While Concord is viewed with suspicion by large numbers of Mimitar, as many of others appear to consider it broadly positive force by the evidence of opinion polling. This balanced view is in contrast with the growing belief among the Mimitar public that Edencom is an Amar conspiracy, ultimately aimed at seizing Mimitar territories. The particular choice of a Mimitar Stargate link from Urgerus to Pakshi appears to have been pushed by the powerful Sebastor tribe with the support of the Vekior tribe and Republic Justice Department. The diplomatically minded Sebastor and Vekior have often emphasized the benefits of closer cooperation with Concord. The Republic Justice Department is also known to be keen to counterbalance to the growing influence of clandestine and militaristic elements within the Republic by promoting a law enforcement and counterterrorism approach to the problem of slave trading and raiding. Reports from sources in the Tribal Council indicates that the Sebastor tribe has won the right to establish a circle organization drawn from Sebastor clans to operate the new Stargates. Sources with knowledge of Concord's inner circle negotiated on the, quote, Stargate Enabling Treaty, SCC Oversight, Navigation, and Funding of YC-123, end quote, has confirmed that the Gallente Federation strongly backed the use of the New Eden Defense Fund as a source of general financing from the SEC elements of the project, and for large grants of the Mimitar Republic. The Amar Empire conditioned its support for the measure on the alleviating of existing sanctions on all traffic using the new Haikyota to Abyssus link in the journey regardless of their origins and endpoints. The Federation is understood to have conceded this point following the agreement of lucrative concessions for the politically influential Transstellar Shipping Corporation with respect to an all-new Stargate links. The Caldari State agrees on the condition of a similar grant for its own Stargate project, while registering a formal objection to the sanctions loophole. The Mimitar Republic did not attempt to block the treaty, no doubt due to the huge financing boost its project will receive from the New Eden Defense Fund. So that's a lot. There's a lot of pieces there. There's a lot of politics there. We're not going to try to break it all apart right now, but a few things I do want to point out. First of all, the Caldari State did receive the most numbers of losses during the Triglavian invasion. And also this link, this new Caldari MR link, is ridiculously long comparatively to normal Stargate links. It is a clear indication of just the sheer amount of stellar manipulation that has undergone thanks to invasions and the subsequent creation of Poshvin and the Triglavians' efforts with the Das Porvitium transmuters. In addition to that, Tashmerkon, we see some very clever maneuvering. Katniss Tashmerkon, very savvy leader of the of the Amar Empire. So not only is she securing this new expansion for Tashmerkon family, but as it points out, Providence is also part of the restructuring. She's really managed to give some of her political enemies a lot of work to do while giving a lot of benefits to her political allies. And that's kind of playing out for her over the last few years with the the doctrine of two swords, which gives her authority over the military and the religious sides of things. The Mimitar Stargate project side of it is really interesting because the Elder Fleet was one of the major inciting events of the Empyrean Age book. You can still see the destroyed structure from where the Elder Fleet attacked. However, this is apparently going to be pretty relevant pretty soon. I have my own suspicions as to why, but I'm not ready to go public on those yet. Otherwise, this is I don't think it's going to be the last that we hear about this particular development. I'll put it that way. Let's see. Anything else in this part that we got out of this? Oh yeah, President Celis Agard also was a big winner out of this. Got to get she levied for a lot of the money to be pulled out of the defense fund, which is the fund that was created by the raise in taxes that happened just after blackout last year or a year ago. Yeah, a year ago. So that was a big win for her. And we'll talk a little bit more about what she's been doing as big wins here in a minute. Next, DED reports equilibrium on mankind fleets, quote, completely degraded, end quote, as anti-EOM operations redoubled on planets. Once again, planets. CCP can't stop referencing planets. Might be worth noting. Uli Genesis. Despite the focus on new Stargates treaty, anti-EOM mopping up operations were also discussed at the Concord Inner Council latest meeting, with it being reported that the council that the DED has assessed the equilibrium of mankind's capital fleet and construction capabilities as, quote, completely degraded beyond practical operational capabilities, end quote. The DED Star Marshal Kejisur Elendal, that's not probably how to pronounce his name, by the way, also emphasized that extensive EOM infrastructure seizures operations conducted in conjunction with independent capsuleers and local navies have recovered, quote, considerable quantities of technical data, equipment, and intelligence, end quote. That's from the live event, or the event that we just did with blowing up the EOM structures. As Marshal Elendal further reported, Concord has extensively shared its analysis of recovered technology and data with the empires. Quote, in compliance with the Uli Accords, and most importantly, to facilitate development of countermeasures and security advances for the sinusoidal navigation and counter-sinusoidal defense nets of the Concord's signatory states, end quote. The DED Star Marshal has commented that on the status of Kahas 3, the Continent Kingdom planet struck by multiple directed energy doomsday blasts from the EOM Avatar-class Titan. Quote, DED and the other Concord agencies naturally offered all assistance to Connet authorities, but security forces there opted to close the planet and decline this offer. We understand that the planet's climate is well on the way to stabilizing, but it is clear that widespread devastation was caused by the weapon strikes themselves, together with multiple powerful supercell storms induced by the massive localized energy induced to the planetary atmosphere. End quote. With the destruction of the main forces and capability of the EOM terror fleets, the primary focus of the empires has been in operations to counter the ongoing threat of infiltrators and terror cells. The Gallente Federation's FIO is engaged in extensive efforts with the other federal and member state security forces to determine the extent of EOM infiltration. While much media attention has been focused on the possibility that EOM were responsible for the YC-122 election attacks, that has been downplayed as the investigation commission chaired by the former president Soro Forotran. For his part, Chief Director Mentis Black of the FIO has issued no comment, while General Thorin Gattaro of the Special Department of Internal Investigations continues the hunt for EOM operatives. The Amar Empire has been characteristically silent as to the internal security measures it has been taking, but reports from across its vast territories indicate a massive, quote, righteous purge of abominable heresy, end quote, being orchestrated by multiple agencies, including the Imperial Guard, Theology Council, Ministry of Eternal Order, and Order of St. Tetramon. Unconfirmed reports claim that the entire establishments and estates of the Fraternity of St. Vinici, has been seized. Many previously tolerated, quote, heterodox cults, orders, and societies have been subjected to various levels of investigation, seizures, and suppression. The police and militias of the royal and major holder houses of Amar have been carrying out extensive hunts for EOM infiltration. The hunt to capture or establish the fate of the infamous Khanid warlord and EOM agent Alar Chakaid is also believed to be a top priority for multiple agents of the Amar Empire. The Mimitar Republic continues its focus to focus its efforts on the, quote, Black Dagger, end quote, murders and terrorist outrages it believes are linked to the EOM campaigns to destabilize the cluster and pitch it into war. The RJD, RSS, and individuals, tribes, marshals, and police organizations have been directed by the Tribal Council to fully cooperate on the investigations and hunt for EOM territories. EOM terrorists. Caldari State investigations have been disrupted by considerable administrative chaos and distinctive lack of cooperation between megacorporations as the fractional struggle for power in the state appears to be heating up. Throughout the crisis and aftermath, Concord agencies have been notably present across all empires in, quote, cooperative and liaison roles, end quote, with the increased presence of such notorious security forces as Sorrow and Derail seemingly tolerated alongside Aegis and the traditional DED police missions. So, still hunting after them, EOM. Derail is the new anti-botting group of Concord. They're against the AI group. They're after strong AI. All right. News in brief. Caldari State megacorporations maintain a state of emergency as CEP remains deadlocked. So last we heard, there is a series of in conjunction with the Doomsday attacks and the Dreadnought attacks. At the very beginning, there's Chuckade that got broke out, but at the very end, there is a bombing at the CEP tower. So this is a follow-up to that. Caldari State megacorporations maintain a state of emergency as CEP remains deadlocked. New Caldari Prime. The Caldari State's emergency measures in the wake of the new Caldari Prime CEP-inspired bombing continues to be in effect as the aftermath of the terrorist attacks remains unresolved. Despite having multiple off-site and off-world clone backup, CEP chair Puak Kosin has not returned to his post due to the recovery of his living body in the wreckage of the CEP Spire. In apparent fluke, the CEP chairman survived the bombing, but is reportedly in, quote, a deep coma with indications of significant brain trauma, end quote. While Kosigan is reportedly as likely to recover as after extensive therapy, the irony of his survival preventing a backup clone activation has had real effects on the Caldari State's crisis-racked politics. The big 8 megacorporations are reported to be in a deadlock as to the way forward for the CEP, with the powerful mountain faction of the Kalikeota and Sukavesta apparently undecided between themselves as to which candidate to back for provisional or even new permanent CEP chairperson. The diametrically opposed Ocean, Ishikone, Hasiota, and Wiakomi, and Forest, CBD, Lide, and NOH factions, lack the votes to push their own favored candidates. Reports of incidents involving rioter vandalism or corporate security abuses continue to be exchanged by workers and executive groups on various Caldari State communications channels, despite the state of emergency, adding to a widespread sense that the Big 8 has lost control. You do not want a fascist authoritarian state to lose control over its people. Interclade warfare rages in Skarkon 2 as Svarog scour planets for Mimitar General Krill Efrit. Skarkon Poshvin. War-torn Skarkon 2 continues to suffer the ravages of high-intensity warfare as Triglavian Velez and Svarog continue to wage an apparently unrestrained war against one another for control of the planet. The reason the Velez Clade places such an importance on contesting control of the region is a planet that lies outside of a planet that lies outside of its Cry Veles zone in Poshvin and firmly within Cry Svarog remains a mystery, but the forces continue to assault Svarog position despite the relatively limited presence. Svarog Clade has apparently poured sufficient forces into Skarkon 2's war zone to counter Veles Clade while pursuing an increasingly determined hunt for Skarkon Tribal Resistance Army Commander Krill Efrit. Independent analysis of an intercepted Svarog communications traffic has suggested that the Clade is obsessed with Ifrit. Other interpretations variously claim admiration, detestation, and or, quote, critically enraged evaluation, end quote, of Valkyr General Ifrit. Despite Svarog Clade's recently leveling a mountain with antimatter weapons in an attempt to destroy the STRA and eliminate Ifrit, sporadic reports have indicated that the general survived and continues to lead significant elements of the Mimitar resistance. Oh, that was a long one, guys. That was one of the two. In other news. Wow, I am late. Khanate Kingdom carries out purge of royal Ulans and navy in wake of Chakade treachery. Chesim Khan secret police arrest thousands of military personnel and minor nobility linked to Chakade. Khanid Royal Guard and Chesim Khan operations eliminate Ducel pretender supporters in Royal Duchy of Fekoa. Theology Council reportedly, quote, cleared Khanid Sardar Marshal Sozan Phelan after evidence from Queen Zidras Khanid. Juristas claim responsibility for delivering 20 EOM operatives, quote, trussed up like chickens, to DoD facility in Obi. Workers' organizations in Kaldari State accused of, quote, receiving stolen script from Juristas, end quote, by Lidai Corporation. Once again, Lidai, keep being caught doing shady stuff. Analysis of Anin 5, Yanla Day Massacre, visual data broadcast by Juristas classified by House Records. Angel Cartel assassinates Corlifer organization, quote, top underboss in inner system at meeting with Thucker clanners. Thucker tribe Sekal clan vows to avenge killing in, quote, violation of code of clan hospitality. Rise in Serpentis smuggling, quote, caused links to rise in gang violence across New Eden, end quote. GPD and RJD joint task force. Serious threats from Blood Raider Covenant and Sanchez Nation, quote, too often ignored, claims DED whistleblower. Oh, CCP's kind of hinting at us that we've been not paying attention to Sancha. Document links, whistleblower suggests, quote, appalling DED complacency in the face of active terrorist evil, end quote. House Artichoper. Whew. Let's just jump straight into the next one. This was the beginning of the world news, or the live event. This is the end of it. Galactic Hour News Roundup. New Stargates open as Empire focus on security and rebuilding. Scope's Galactic News Hour with Rhett Gloriax brings you a roundup of the latest news from around the cluster as new routes begin between stars open across New Eden, and the core empires continue to focus on security and rebuilding. Newly constructed Stargates come online and open for traffic across New Eden empires. Uli Genesis. New Stargate routes were opened by each of the core empires yesterday following the final assembled work facilitated by the operations of each empire's logistical services and capsuleers participating in resource gathering operations. The activity of the new routes took place simultaneously as agreed by the Stargate-enabled treaty, SCC Oversight, Navigation, and Funding, YC-123, signed by the Concord Powers. The newly established links to the following systems. Read those just a little bit ago. Activation of the new gates was achieved without major incident, although localized space-time topology effects inhibited the use of microwave engines for some hours following the establishment of gate links. It was a dead space pocket, so people couldn't warp. People couldn't even activate micro-warp drives around the gates for a little while. Some have speculated that the simultaneous activation of 4 gate pairs combined with the disruption of New Eden's background space-time topology caused by Triglavian stellar manipulations could have caused such unforeseen effects. CCP blaming the Trigs for their bugs? Gate crews reported normal operations of the gates themselves, and so far there have been no reports of abnormal Triglavian gate activities in the gate systems. Chief Executive Panel agreed to appoint Akima Sakari, acting chairman. Deadlocked by New Kaldari Prime. Deadlocked by the Kaldari State's Chief Executive Panel was broken this morning by the appointment of Akimaka. I got it. I'm going to have to figure out how to pronounce this officially, but Akimaka Saraki as acting chairman of the CEP. This is the guy. This is the fourth dude on the wall. This is the Kaldari dude from the Federation's poster, by the way. The ruling council of the Kaldari State megacorporations has been without a chairperson since CEP chair Pok Kosin was injured in the bombing of CEP Spire in landfall city of New Kaldari Prime. So watch this man. This is the man. He is the one taking on the position of like Tybus Heth or whatever. The appointment of acting chair Saraki is a coup for the ocean faction of Hasiota, Ishikoni, and Wiakomi corporations, representing a deal that saw Mountain faction of Kalikiota and Sukavesta agree to back an appointee from the Wiakomi Mecha Corporation. Most notably serving as the Kaldari State delegate to Concord's inner circle, Saraki was notable in helping avert a major conflict due to the Equilibrium of Mankind crisis. His service during the Triglavian invasions is also held as a distinct advantage, with his role overseeing the fortification of the Wiakomi holdings in the Samanuni system and personal command of the planetary defenses of the 6th planet, contributing to the successful repulsion of the Triglavian forces. Akimaka Saraki is also the son-in-law of Akari, retired CEO of Wiakomi Oh man, Sityu Oda Heavy Industries and a member of the dynasty that controls the Wiakomi megacorporation. Akari has been outspoken in his acknowledgement of the basis of worker grievances during the recent unrest in the state, and Saraki is known to be sympathetic to those outraged by the failings of the military and corporate security forces. The appointment of Saraki as acting CEP chair may indicate that the Ocean faction has persuaded the stability and security-oriented Mountain faction to take a path of reform and reconciliation with aggrieved worker populations. Regardless of whether that is so, the Forest faction of CBD, Lidai, and NOH has undoubtedly been dealt a blow, and they may have to tread carefully to avoid the Mountain faction axis Ocean Mountain axis solidifying into a permanent alliance. This is a serious threat. CBD and Lidai and NOH is, of course, PKN, which are the people that did the renovations of JITA 4.4, and also are the ones that keep getting caught doing shady stuff. All right. Federation Senate passes new appropriations bill to fund Agard's infrastructure ambitions. Valor Essence. The Gallente Federation Senate has passed a new bill enacting the Federation infrastructure budget and making new appropriations specifically to the security projects aimed at fulfilling the promises of President Celis Agard to unify periphery and core of the Federation through concrete action. The presence of the bill is believed to have been contingent on the backing of powerful blocs emphasizing the independence of planetary states and nations within the Federation. There are rumors that President Agard has agreed to veto the so-called Belleron bill to abolish and outlaw capital punishment as a concession to these political forces. Senator Suvio Belleron's capital punishment abolition bill passed the full Senate before the election of President Agard, becoming an election issue when President Jacques Rodin opted to leave the decision of enactment or veto to his successor. Since President Agard's election, the bill has been the subject of study into the, quote, feasibility of implementation in consideration of the social, cultural, and political independence of member states, end quote, at the president's request. Senate procedure committees have regularly voted to keep the bill active to avoid it falling into abeyance for lack of enactment. President Celis Agard may have been able to parlay her promises for infrastructure and security investments to some of the more liberal Senate blocs into the acquiescence of the capital punishment matter. Senator Belleron appears to have lost the argument with his political allies from Intaki and Greater Placid, together with some of his labor populist bloc, seen to vote for the abolition bill procedurally. These groups were evidently unwilling to hold up the infrastructure bill, effectively freeing President Agard to veto the capital punishment measures. So President Celis Agard is the president of the Gallente Federation, President Bulcut. She's the person from the new, what's it called, trailer? In fact, let me set that up real quick to show you. I wasn't quite ready for that. Hold on. Gallente Federation. And she ran on this whole policy of like reconnecting with the border systems or projecting strength into the border systems, et cetera, et cetera. And so she's been very, very savvy ever since she's been president. She's gotten all of everything that she's wanted so far. As you can see, that she commenced Concord to put in a bunch of the funding for the gates, and at the same time convinced the Senate to go along with her plans without her having to allow the abolition bill to go through, which she really, really didn't want to do politically. So this is like, if you think about it, often if you want to talk about like the political cost, she managed to get everything she wanted, and she didn't give her a political rival anything that they wanted. So, this is her first year of her presidency. She's already gotten her Stargate to Solitude and made really good friends with some of the other connection systems. This could potentially mean some bad news for the Caldari relations, especially when it starts to deal with the war zone as we go forward, but we'll have to see. In the meantime, we'll check out the new trailer of the Gallente people that was just released this week. Wait, hold on.
hundreds of worlds, billions of people. Our strength is our diversity. Our tolerance lends us unity. But cross us, and you will swiftly find the steel beneath the velvet. Above all, know this, my fellow citizens. Our Federation is the light of liberty, shining in the darkness.
So that is Celis Agard, and that is the Gallente Federation. So, in fact, let me pop that back up. This is Celis Agard, and if you want to know more about her and the Gallente Federation, on Sunday we will be doing at 1600 on CCP TV, the CCP Twitch stream. I'll be there with CCP Fozzie and CCP Convict discussing the the voice actor was really, really good. And I love, like, Celis Agard's like whole shtick. I really like her attitude. Her acceptance speech was exceptional. I want to hear more. I really want to hear this voice actor say Celis Agard's acceptance speech personally, but I digress. So Convict, who's in chat right now, myself and CCP Fozzie will be there on CCP TV. They will be streaming for a couple hours before that, and then we'll be doing like a Federation Day special on Sunday morning. So that's a little thing about what to do this weekend, but we'll get to more about what to do this weekend in just a little bit. At any rate, moving on. So that's the Galactic Hour news. I really want to rush through the rest of this because I was expecting this to be a short thing, and I want to scurry over to like Talking Stations for more news, but that was a lot of Galactic Hour news. So let's go ahead. Oh, shoot, I need to keep reading. I'm not even done. See? Still more news. Tribal Council votes to increase anti-war clone measures, fund clandestine units, and raise volunteer armies. Matar Pater. Mimitar Republic Security dominated the latest meeting of the Tribal Council with measures to combat renegade war clones, fund more clandestine operations, and raise new volunteer armies for the defense of Flossiswin 4 and liberation of Skarkon and Kurillid. Despite a lengthy session that observers described as, quote, heated at times, end quote, the package of measures gained the consent of the entire Tribal Council. Chief Akasa Midular of the Sebester tribe expresses her concern at a, quote, ever-expanding security slate that imperils the freedoms and rights of our clans and tribes, end quote, and was joined by many of her objections to several initial proposals by Chief Elika Valkanir of the Nephinter, Chief Jorian Setul of the Starkminder, and Chief Izardsund Herbal of the Vekior and Bruder tribes. Chief, oh man, that doesn't even have, those are too many consonants together. Wukumi Pol also objected specifically to Concord agencies being given increased powers within tribal territories. Rejections of sweeping rights for Concord Sorrow Red Troop, anti-war clone, and derail anti-AI units to each intertribal and clan territories, quote, under Republic Security Services supervision, end quote, was inevitable with 5 tribes objecting to such measures. However, Chief Taran Hadi Daikon of the Kuruzal and Chief Endar Ibel of the Thucker were able to win the day on enhanced investigationary powers of the RSS anti-war clone units. The Brutor and Starkminder tribes were persuaded of this need by the rise of the renegade war clones, quote, associating with Amar and Triglavian slavers and invaders, end quote. Renegade war clones, by the way, war clones are the Dust's foot soldiers. These are immortal foot soldiers like Capsuleers, but a simpler kind of clone that they can use for ground troops. Rejections of sweeping rights for Concord's funding for clandestine units able to operate against increasing pirate and illegal slaver operations, as well as infiltrate occupied territories in Pochvin and the militia war zones, was less controversial. The council also passed funding and established enabling measures to provide for raising further volunteer armies for the defense of Flossiswin 4, liberation of Skarkon and Kurillid, and support of militia and liberation operation generally. The only thing I'm going to comment about this is that if CCP isn't getting close to announcing what their shooter, they should probably let the lore team know, because the lore team seems to think that they are. Just saying. All right. News in brief. Amarr campaign against heresy continues as Holder fervently declares faith and loyalty. Amarr Prime, despite limited external comment and numerous key cities remaining closed by outsiders, it is clear to the Amarr Empire's campaign against internal dissent and heresy continues unabated. The Scope's own sources suggest that the work of the Ministry of Internal Order, Theology Council, Order of St. Tetramon is actually increasing in intensity. The royal houses of Amarr and all major houses are prosecuting their own vigorous campaigns, while the minor holders' houses are allegedly, quote, competing with one another to profess their faith and total loyalty to the throne of Holy Amarr, end quote. The signs are that the ongoing campaign is the largest and most intense hunt for heretics and purge of disloyal elements within the Amarr Empire since the military action against the so-called Refusards during the reign of Empress Jamil I. The MIO, Theology Council, and extraordinarily, the Order of St. Tetramon has been given powers to draw forces from local militias and significant authority over major house troops. They are also empowered with requests of royal houses and Imperial Guard forces to be deployed, leaving no stone unturned. The various ministries, councils, and orders have also been given authority to investigate one another in order under supervision of the Privy Council. This last measure is perhaps the clearest signal of how seriously the Amarr Empire is taking the hunt in the aftermath of the EOM crisis and following years of heretic outrages seeming to go unchecked. This is actually really interesting because, like, each empire is having to deal with their own pressures, right? So the Gallente have actually, like, solidified themselves around this populace that is about, like, securing their borders, because that speaks to the fears of the Gallente people given the Triglavian crisis. The Caldari state is descending into kind of more disorder and chaos as the pirate factions kind of stoke the flames, and the only thing that the corporations know how to do is crack down. The Amarr are responding by declaring all of the other guys heretics and purging them through basically internal inquisition. And the Minmatar continue to be confusing tribal politics that I don't really want to comment on right now. Intaki Assembly, Senate Subcommittee, and Security Council meetings scheduled. Intaki Placid. The Intaki Assembly has agreed to schedule for meetings with the Senate Subcommittee on Shipping and Security Franchising and the Federal Security Council. The series of meetings are intended to resolve outstanding issues with the proposal from the Intaki Assembly to allocate the Intaki Star Systems Shipping and Security franchise to a group including the Intaki State Space Police, Intaki Commerce Corporations. President Celis Agard is understood to have made it a priority to arrive in an agreement that, quote, respects the rights and privileges of the Intaki Assembly while protecting the security of the Federation, end quote, according to a source close to the talks. Another source has indicated the Galactic Hour with Rhett Gloriax that Intaki Senate support for the presidential infrastructure bill was a, quote, factor that helped break the deadlock, end quote. So here we have, she reached out to the Intaki people, which are very deep into almost the center of the Caldari Gallente war zone, and seems to be giving them support, and that helped her get the support that she needed to break through the deadlock and not have to deal with her political rival's attempt to get her, in the abolition bill. Inner Clade War on Skarkon 2 rages as Capsuleers struggle for supremacy in Poshvin. Skarkon, Poshvin, Triglavian interclade warfare between Svarog and Veles Clade has been reported once more to have increased in intensity and expanded across the ravaged planet. Reports from observers on Skarkon suggest that the latest phase of this conflict between the warring clades has literally spilled over into the seas of Skarkon 2. Littoral zones of the continental shelf waters of the major seas has been scenes of fervorous Svarog Clade activity in response to a large number of drops of unknown cargo into the seas by Veles Clade's ships. A degree of retreat from the previous land zones overrun by the Svarog has ensued as the occupational forces has redistributed forces to deal with the new aquatic front. Relatively untouched population centers in the hinterlands of the primary landmasses are reported to be using the unexpected breathing space to continued evacuations where possible and fortifications underground where impractical. The original major cities of Skarkon II's urban industrial district of Skarkasad are largely abandoned by civilians, but continue to be the scene of fierce fighting between Skarkon tribal resistance army, renegade war clones, and significant numbers of Svarog war machines overseen by siege elites, a term that has come to be universally applied to Svarog's mechanized and heavy infantry troikas. As Skarkon 2 continues to live up to its long reputation as the snake pit of New Eden, quote, snake pit of a New Eden, end quote, Capsuleers are on the move across Poshvin with self-styled Kybernaut supporters of the Triglavians in conflict with Empire and Edencom loyalist forces. Independent Capsuleers, corporations, and alliances are also increasingly struggling for some degree of supremacy of the Triglavian regions since ideological proving lockouts of most conduit gates were lifted. Increased conflict between Triglavian clades has been speculated to have led to the convocation of Triglav to dispense with the lockouts on all but the home systems of each clade. Others claim Aegis information warfare commandos sabotaged the lockout systems, but have no explanation as to why the Triglavians have not seen fit to restore them. So the theory is either the Triglavians' internal conflict has caused them to have to lower the defenses of the gates, or Aegis has hacked them, or some combination of the two. Khanid purges continue as royalist troops deploy across kingdom. Parsis Khanid, while participating in the general Amar Empire's purge of heresy, the Khanid kingdom continues to take the opportunity to clamp down on territories seen as less than loyal to the authority of King Farka Khanid III and his vassal nobles. Large numbers of the feared Chisim Khan secret police and their powerful security troop divisions have been deployed across the kingdom, backed by detachments of the king's own royal guards in several instances. Particularly problematic holdouts of, quote, disloyalty and impiety against the order of things, end quote, have seen landings of even the most feared Asbara Cyber Knights, military units renowned for dispassionate brutality across the kingdom. The notorious 7th Asbara Cyber Knights under Sardar Marshal Sosan Faiz are reported to have landed in force on Bashyam 4 of the Royal Duchy of Fayssal to, quote, crush all of the rebellion, be it in action, word, or symbol, end quote. Fayssal is in direct holdings of the Amar House of Khanid, but is reported to be a center for so-called, quote, one crown unificationists, end quote, a movement backing the claimants of holder authority said to flow directly from the emperor's family and the throne of the Amar. Such politics are highly incendiary within the kingdom, and has been growing in the years since the Khanid state rejoined the Amar as a kingdom of the empire. Ironically, the theology and political basis of the One Crown movement is reportedly in conflict with the doctrines of the royal Damascenes and the Privy Council within the imperial right. The Khanid house has thus used the current atmosphere within the Amar Empire to purge its disaffected elements. In other news, Krolifer and Sekal ally with intra-family and Onekanbo Brigade to control Inner Oman smuggling routes. Combined, quote, criminal alliance aims to, quote, fend off Angels and Garistas, according to Gainland rumors. Angels and Garistas working together. That might be something worth noting. Torano Space Lane Patrol seizes smuggled Garistas holo-reels hidden among mining transports. Custom sources, quote, the Space Laners expected anti-corporate agitprop and just found some, the Space Laners expected anti-corporate agitprop and just found some weird porn. Amar heretical cult continues to provoke violence and legal protests in Federation system of Laminant. Purity of the Throne fanatics pursued by Imperial Guard after cell uncovered by House Quosh forces in Oris. That's interesting, since Purity of the Throne hasn't been heard of since really Empress Katniss was crowned. So maybe the Purity of the Throne might return for Coronation Day. And if it does, maybe the Purity of the Throne skins will return too. Uh-oh. There's some people that have some skins that have some value. I wonder. Anyway, that's enough trouble out of me. Theology Council considers status of Tarot of St. Jamil's following crackdown of extreme Gemelite cultists. RJD joins Interstellar Anti-EOM Joint Task Force after MIO escaped slave hunters replaced as head of Amar delegation. Sorrow Command recommends Concord Assembly Act to, quote, restrict and disrupt independent war clone organizations. Colonel Oveg Dursk submits report, quote, detailing numerous incidents of war clone pro-Triglavian activities and treachery. Oveg Dursk is the head of Sorrow, I think. Concord's derail, given authority to launch investigation to the use of illegal AI by Capsuleers and war clones and Ugalis. Now, this last one is supposedly involving some, like, RP thing on the forums, but it's also true that in Faction Warfare, we've been dealing with a bunch of the AI bots that have been descending onto the war zone. So, you know what? Concord Derail is already in Ugalis dealing with this. They need to be involved in the rest of this war zone issue. I know that there's derail skins. So we're going to have to watch these things to see how these are going to develop. In the meantime, the Faction Warfare situation has been dire, as I just mentioned. So, as you can see, the blue is Caldari, the green is Galente. We have been beaten all the way back to just a few systems in the south. We're holding Intaki and Fleet, which is Aderon Robotics' home, and the surrounding systems from there. But basically, everything else has been able to be taken by the Caldari. The systems of Anschwitz and Essir has been fought over tooth and nail in the north, and various other skirmishes over Vlilariel and some other places. But of course, I have been focusing on this area in the war zone. In the last week, I've gotten over 100 kills. We've been fighting. I've been doing like 12-hour-a-day fleets. It's been non-stop action. Now there's pirates getting involved, which is, I mean, not great for us trying to like get some work done, but it has been a lot of fun. Just want to get people involved with that. I did an interview with Talking Stations for more information. And as you can see, like, our kill board has been not just a bunch of frigates. Wanted to throw that out there. But we talked about the Triglavian aligned guys and having difficulties. I want to make sure that we also bring up that Poshvin has been burning. It has been decided that the Triglavian forces are going to be burning their own structures. The Poshvin was originally designed to be without player structures, and that players were expected to use the NPC stations. But the player structures that were allowed to be there were there already, were allowed to stay. In the end, it has been too big of a problem and enough other problems that they have decided that they are going to just burn their structures and live in NPC stations. So some people see this as the defeat of the Triglavians, but the Triglavians, and some people even within the Triglavians feel this way. I personally feel that this is going to make the Triglavians more powerful than anyone could possibly imagine, now that they can simply worry about using their filaments to go out, do some damage, and get back. And now they're angry at everyone for burning their stuff. So, good luck, guys. Also, there was a great interview with on Talking Stations about that as well. Finally, I wanted to talk about the player count drop. One last thing. This was the thing that people were talking about, and I just want to talk about, like, I went back and looked 2 years past, and this same drop happened. There's COVID, and also the last thing I thought about was the fact that with the with the new changes with the anti-cloaking device, that's probably getting rid of AFK cloaking as a general strategy, and I bet you that's going to have an impact on the PCU count more than you would expect. So something to think about there. And then finally, today or this weekend, what is there to do? Tomorrow at 2300, we will be in Tanundin. I'll be forming up in 2200 in probably Penmene. And watch my Twitter for updates on this. But the current plan is to form up in... Actually, no, sorry. The current plan is to form up in Jeddah, potentially, and then go to Tanundin in order to have Chappie's birthday party at 2300 on Saturday. And then on Sunday, like I said, I will be on CCP's stream. So beyond that, we have the 2v2v2 Abyssal Proving Grounds, which CCP will be playing around with on Sunday morning as well. And anybody else can get involved with. You can have one cruiser and one assault frigate. There is a new... there's that Galente expert system that makes it so that you can fly some of these ships even if you couldn't, which is nice. So get in there, get some fun, get some skins and some skill points and whatnot. And finally, there is the reason why this was supposed to be a short thing. There's the propaganda contest. So if you want to make something involving the Gallente Federation, if you're interested in doing something creative, you can submit it within. Hold on, let me look at the time. By the 27th of June. It can be songs, music, gifts, screenshots. It's going to be competing with me. I've got some plans, but top prize is one of those cool statues from Mixed Dimension, plus a set of the clothing. Second place is 1100 Plex, which is 2 months of game time, a little bit more, and the clothing. And third place is 1 month of game time and the clothing. And also the main prize gets a Kronos Kali Neon. Second place gets Ishtar Kali Neon, and third place gets Hekate Kali Neon. That's it. That's all I got for this weekend, and I already went too long. So without further ado, I've been Ashtarothi. I've been playing this game since 2010, talking about it since 2012, and I'm here to put even to context for you, my fellow Empyreans. Thank you all for coming and checking out this show. We make this show twice a week on Tuesdays and Wednesdays in order to bring you everything that you need to remain in the know about EVE Online, to maximize your engagement with EVE Online. So if you are interested in maximizing your engagement, I recommend checking out the Convocation of Empyreans, my alliance. We are dedicated to maximizing player engagement with EVE Online. If you need an alliance, or if you just need some help finding out how to do something, come check out the Convocation of Empyreans. You don't need to join to get help. We are here to help you. With all that being said, I have been Ashtarothi, and until next time, I will see you in space. Extra thanks to all my Patreons. Oh, I'm going to try my new credits. Let's see how this works. Oh, God, it's going to be halfway done. Bear with me.